Hey, Pulkit, I am very excited to chat with you today. I don't think there's been many people I've interacted with more over the past couple of years, and it's been so fascinating and exciting to, follow your company, Beer30 by the Fifth Ingredient, simply grow. You're not an old company, but you've done so much in a short period of time. And I've had the pleasure just to follow all that success, and we're really excited here at CBP to have you on as a presenting sponsor for this upcoming virtual conference. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate that. But first off, for everyone who doesn't know who you are, I'd love to do the deep dive. Who
Nice.
Pulkit Agarwal is. So,
Let's do it.
who are you, my friend?
Cool. Thank you for having me. And it's so exciting to be a part of the entire CBP community. It's been great to see it grow from, I think I was one of the first few hundred people on the group all the way up to where it is now. So that's awesome. So my background, my name is Pulkit K. Agarwal. I also go by PK to a lot of people in the industry. And so I studied mechanical engineering at Harvard University and then was recruited to work at Ballast Point Brewing in San Diego as a process engineer. At my time at Ballast Point, I really focused a lot on packaging equipment, bottling, canning, kegging lines, and really helping them launch their entire nitrogen beer brand in bottles as well. And so that was pretty cool to just have those different projects, help them out with the expansion in Virginia. And so, yeah, just got a really good dive into the brewing industry. And then a couple years later, left and started the Fifth Ingredient. And that's really where it's been since then.
So I feel like we're missing a couple steps. I want to dive back.
Sure.
So you went to Harvard, you started working at Ballast Point. Were you a beer person then, or how did you decide you wanted to be in the craft beer industry?
I just really wanted to focus on manufacturing equipment. And so at that point, Ballast Point was actually recruiting on campus. And so because of recruiting, I was like, hey, let's check this out. It's beer. It's something totally different.
Did they give you a beer when you stopped by their little booth at the trade show?
They did not. I was actually not 21 at the time as well at that point.
So they gave you an offer you couldn't refuse, and ta-da, you're in the beer industry.
Exactly. Yep. It was just very different. It was something that I was always like, you can always go into tech or other companies later on, but I was like, this is beer. This is so different, so new for me. I was like, let's try this out. This is going to be pretty cool.
And what about your experience at Ballast Point, helped you decide you wanted to create something on your own that could provide greater value to the industry?
So really, when I was at Ballast Point, I was focused a lot on process engineering and helping brewers, and mainly on the packaging side, understand how to use data to make better product and really focus on efficiencies. And so during that time, I basically learned a lot of different things in the industry. And after I left, I really started the Fifth Ingredient to focus on consulting. And so the thought was, let's focus on actually doing what I used to do at Ballast Point on the consulting side and see if I could find some customers with that. And so really, it very quickly pivoted into something different, which is now Beer30. But really, the objective was to focus on from the consulting point of view.
And when you first launched it from the consultant point of view, what were your pain points you were looking to solve back then, and how did it truly evolve?
Really, the thought process was, hey, let's hit up a couple breweries, see what they have when it comes to their packaging efficiencies, see what's going on when it comes to brewing and filtration yields, et cetera, and see if I can help with that. And very quickly, I realized that you would go to these breweries and they may have different management softwares or things like that, but most of the times it would be like, oh, here's a binder of paper logs so you can start going through process data. And I was just like, how is this not solved yet? And that's really where Beer30 came about, which was, I want to do stuff on the efficiency side, but before you can even help a brewery do that, it helps to have a full data management system that's tracking this real time. And that's really where the idea of Beer30 sparked, which was, hey, I wonder if there's a software that I can build to actually help other consultants and other people track this data, and other breweries track their data from start to finish.
I think you used the word data about 5 to 10 times in that past sentence alone. But it's interesting because I think your reliance on data and how important it is in the current state of craft beer today really speaks to how our industry is growing. We've done the virtual conferences in Craft Beer Professionals. We're going on the 4th time now in October. And the first time, I don't think we saw the word data in too many presentation proposals whatsoever. Then fast forward to the one we did in spring just a few months ago, data seemed like it was in every other presentation submission. Why do you believe now data is more important in craft beer?
Absolutely. So I think this was kind of the theory that I had a few years ago, which was that when it comes to the beer production side, there's basically in a lot of ways a saturation in the market. And because of that, people at this point really focus on two things for a business to be successful. One is quality. If you're making good beer, your customers are going to keep coming back. And at this point, because there's just so many breweries all around, if you're not making good beer, I'm just going to go down the street to another brewery. And two is focusing on the cost side of things, right? And really focusing on decreasing costs. And so when you start looking at the fact that once you're up and running, really to fine tune things on quality and fine tune things on cost to keep a brewery operating, you need to start using data. And at that point, it can be super overwhelming. But really, when you start looking at workflows and looking at ways to actually approach the data management, it can actually really help you fine tune your data sets to brew better beer and brew more beer. And because of that, I think that's where the industry is really headed towards, of how can different vendors and different suppliers and different consultants really help people fine tune this art so that way they can make better beer and have better profitability as well.
No, the more data we have, the better we can make decisions. And looking at some of the problems you've solved for some of the breweries you've worked with, are there any examples or case studies or success stories that you've taken a brewery's problem and helped solve it?
Yeah, one of the great ones that I really like is a customer that we have who noticed that over time their pH was trending in the same direction. They noticed that the gravities were pretty consistent, and yet the beer still tasted very different. And so at that point, anecdotally, it's like, oh, we're doing the same thing. The numbers are similar at the end. What's going on? And we realized when they started looking at their data set that even though their gravities were spot on, their pH was actually fluctuating from knockout because the water coming in from the city was changing, right? So something as simple as that, where you're just looking at gravity and trending that, but you may start seeing, well, anecdotally, I'm not doing anything different. Why is the beer still tasting different? When you start diving in on the data side, it's like, oh, the water from the city is different, which is causing the beer to taste different. And so that's where we need to be more cautious about mineral additions or what's happening on the knockout side. So it's things like that now when you start graphing and actually comparing this data set, it becomes so much more powerful for the end user.
That's fascinating. I bet you've learned a ton just talking to all the breweries that you talk with daily.
Yeah, and not just on the beer side. I've learned so much when it comes to the full stack of supply chain, from where breweries are getting their raw materials and making purchase orders and learning the best practices of accounting from different breweries, all the way into the brewing process, sales and distribution, and how people work with distributors and how the logistics works. Like all things that I had never touched when I was at Ballast Point that are now all coming to light together in this setup.
No, I love it. So that goes into the next question really well. How are you planning to continue to innovate as you grow the company?
So that's a really cool question. So our innovation is really focused on what can we do to actually start taking the data sets that we have and help provide valuable insights for our actual customers, right? So what can we do to help a brewery actually start using that data to start comparing different beers over time, to really start focusing in on how it is that their batch's consistency and efficiencies are properly being tracked and trended to be more proactive with it, and what type of insights can we provide to really show to the end brewery that this is where it's taking it to the next level from a spreadsheet and taking it to like this new platform completely, where we're providing you with key metrics that you can do and key actions to actually help you brew better product.
I love to hear people get so excited about data and processes. It's absolutely, it's fantastic. But it's been super fun to watch you grow over the past few years as well. Early in the conversation today, you used the word consultant. And, as like a solo entrepreneur, that's how I am myself. You do have a small team when you started, but you're constantly growing the company. And just like so many of these brewery owners out there, you're bringing on more people to your team. You're looking outside your organization to grow because you want to provide the best value for everyone you interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. Those all definitely tie in together. And for me, that's been a huge learning experience as a whole, as well as to what can we do to keep growing the team to provide more value for the end customers? What are areas that we can do to even get more expansion happening, more breweries, more innovation? That all ties in together by hiring the right people to really help our team grow.
So what sets you and Beer30 apart from other people providing a similar data solution?
I think the biggest thing for us has always been, let's focus on the brewer first, and let's have like the accountant role somewhat secondary in a lot of ways. And what really this aspect of the brewer first mentality and the focus on quality has led us into an aspect of really focusing in on ways that we can basically bridge the best of both worlds. So a great example that I use to explain this is that in some inventory management systems, brewers can be locked out of brewing if the inventory doesn't exist, right? Which makes a lot of sense from an accounting perspective. On a balance sheet, you don't want somebody depleting product if they don't actually have the inventory on hand in their management system. But in the real world, if it's 5 a.m., you have a brewer that's cutting a bag of grain to mash in, and he or she's about to start their brewing process at 5 in the morning, and a management system says, hey, you can't brew. Well, the person physically has that inventory on hand. They're not going to stop what they're doing to track down a purchase order, track down an invoice, and enter that information in. So something like that in Beer30, the brewer can still brew, mark that item as untracked, and then the accountants or warehouse team can then reconcile after the fact. And so it's things like that that really focus on the brewer's side, but never at the expense of data integrity, but just really come up with workflows and different solutions to get the best of both worlds from the brewer and the accountant's perspective.
One thing I also love what you've created is that you also have a Facebook group where your customers are in it and they're constantly giving you insight to see how you can improve, and you're constantly putting out new features to make their lives easier.
Yeah, that was actually a really cool idea that we had overall about getting into the world of like Beer30 legends, right? And so we use that phrase all around, that everybody in the Beer30 and Bucha30 community is a legend. And so really this Facebook group became a much easier way for us to get a hold of all of our customers directly. And we're very active with customers and customer support. We have 24/7 coverage. We use WhatsApp for customer support as well. So we have direct lines of communication with each group. But really the legends aspect was, let's go to the crowdsourcing route where our customers are helping each other out, where if they have a question of, hey, I wonder, can I do this in Beer30? Somebody else from the community can also respond rather than just relying on the fifth ingredient team. And the way that people have approached this in that community aspect has been so amazing to see, and people just constantly having discussions about, hey, can we do this new feature, or I'm experiencing this problem or things. And really the aspect is that the fifth ingredient in Beer30 is just not about the whole data set and about the product. It's really about the community that comes with it as well. And then the interactions that you have with other breweries, that you have with the people. And that also is a way to set us apart, which is that community-driven approach. And really that's how our product roadmap is done, that it's coming from the community itself rather than just us putting our heads together. People and our customers and breweries are the ones driving our product forward.
Absolutely. There's so much we can learn from one another. And I love that you have that community, and I love how engaged it's become and how it continues to grow. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how vital has the internet been in your growth over the past few years?
100%, 10 out of 10. I mean, at this point, yeah, from the very beginning, we've been a fully remote company. I've always been that mentality of work wherever you want to work from, travel, love the remote culture experience. And so that was something that was important from day one when I started this company. And really the goal was, let's travel a lot, consult, and for all of that, really having that remote access is very, very important. And so, especially during COVID or just in general, as we kept growing, having remote workers around the country and being able to scale that has been really awesome. And so, yes, I mean, the internet, 100%, that's if the internet goes down for a day, I'm basically freaking out. I need to figure out a different place to work from for that day.
I feel you on that one, Pulkit. I totally feel you on that one. Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past couple of years. I'm really looking forward to meeting in person, though. We've been able to connect nicely through the screen, but it's going to convey really nice when we actually share a beer together.
Totally. So absolutely excited for that at CBC as well.
Oh, yeah. One final question for you. Looking into the crystal ball, where do you hope Beer30 is in a year from now?
Nice question. So really the focus for Beer30 is even in a year, and just what we're building towards is, what can we do to make data management more accessible and make it at a point that people, especially smaller breweries that may not have a full staff on hand, are able to start realizing that this is an aspect that they can get into very quickly and very affordably, right? And so really the focus from a crystal ball perspective is, what can we do to get more breweries on, that they don't feel so overwhelmed about everything that they need to do to track this data, and make it much clearer to them that they can get in at a very low cost solution that's very powerful, that's giving them real world insights, and we're giving them the framework to do so. And really at this point, what we're trying to figure out in a crystal ball aspect is, what do we do to keep building that North Star metric of getting breweries all experiencing that same level of complexity that they would get if they have a software like this.
And if anyone's interested in reaching out for a demo or merely to ask any questions, how can they do so?
Yeah, send an email to pint@thefifthingredient.com. Comment below if this is a live feed. We can go from there as well. Reach out to Andrew. He can connect us as well. And you're more than welcome to reach out to me as well directly on Facebook, and I'm part of the craft beer groups. Search for Beer30. I'm sure you'll see my name all over as well.
And I have to say, when you and I are having a conversation, I never know whether to message you on Facebook or shoot you an email. Is that fine line? Facebook become the Brewers LinkedIn of sorts. So it's been
it's
great
all
getting
over.
to know you, and I really appreciate all your support and everything craft beer professionals related. Looking forward to seeing you very, very soon. And cheers. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Cheers as well.
Bye.